Ladies and gentlemen, Geri Petito.
I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
When you don't know just what to do.
Just what to do, just what to do.
If what you're feeling is really true.
Is it really true? Is it really true?
Just keep your ideas safe and sound.
Safe and sound, safe and sound.
That's exactly how change is found.
Change is found, change is found. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geri Petito Show on Hamilton Radio. Guys, everyone and anyone who knows me knows I am the author of I'm Not an Addict, I'm Just an Ass. I'd rather be a smart ass than a dumbass, guys, because 32 years ago, I was a dumbass. But through the grace of God, 32 years later, I can honestly say now I'm a smart ass. And yes, the word ass is in the Bible at least 40 times, and it means donkey, and that's what I was. I'm saying all that to say this, guys. We've all had a rough 3 years all over the world, right? Unfortunately, some have not made it, including family and friends of mine. But I am a nutritional health coach. I'm a recovery coach, and I want everyone out there to know you are not alone. So all my services to you are free. Please, please reach out. If you think my book can help someone, because I sure do, you can go to Simon & Schuster's bookstore, Archway Publishing. It's everywhere. It's on BAM, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. Guys, if someone truly, truly, truly cannot afford my book, please, please reach out to me about that as well. You can also go to the Geri Petito Show YouTube channel, subscribe. A lot of cool things are happening, and my website, of course, www.geri.petito.com. So, guys, I have an incredible, incredible guest today. Okay, he is not only an iconic legend, he's a superstar, and there's not a star out there who does not know this gentleman. Everyone, let me introduce Charles Calello. Charlie, say hello to the world.
Okay. Hello to the world.
How are you?
I'm pretty good for a Boca Raton resident.
Yes. I'm jealous, but good. But you were originally from Newark, right?
Yes. I was born there and lived there first 22 years of my life.
Okay.
Then I moved around Jersey quite a bit. From there, I moved to Union.
Okay.
Then from Union to Woodcliff Lake. Then from Woodcliff Lake, I lived in New York for a while. Then I moved to Fairfield.
So wait, we're in New York. Wait, we're in New York.
Riverdale.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I lived there for a while, and there was a building there was like we had a 5-story townhouse, which was really cool overlooking the Hudson River. But I wanted the kids to be in Jersey, so we moved back.
So I was originally from Long Island City, New York. So I'm a Jersey girl, but I'm a New Yorker, baby.
Yeah, I understand.
So, I want to just share something with you, and then we'll get into your life story because it's so incredible. So many people have been messaging me for the last 2 days. Okay? Tell him I said hello. Oh my goodness, I can't believe you're interviewing him. I mean, the list was endless. There's so many. And guys, I can't say everyone. I just can't. It's impossible, okay? So, but Tom Austin, of course, the first one we have to give a shout out to because he connected you with me, and I just want to thank him for that. Tom Austin, we love you, man. So you have an incredible, incredible resume. I do have a question, and we'll start the interview with this because I thought this was really, really cool. So, I mean, you're everything, man. You're arranger, composer, conductor, record producer, singer, right? I mean, everything. I didn't know this, okay? I'm 61 years old, and I say it because I always say I was born too late because I love oldies, Elvis, doo-wop, all that. Of course, the Four Seasons. I mean, come on. But I didn't know they were the Four Lovers first.
Not only were they the Four Lovers, and I was a member of the Four
Yes.
Lovers, they also became the Romans in
Oh,
between. While I was with them, a, f- a friend of mine who I went to high school with had cerebral palsy, and he wrote a song. And after we got out of school, I stayed in touch with him, and it was called Come Si Bella. So when he wrote the song, and I actually co-wrote the song with him, he wanted Frankie Valli to sing it.
okay.
So I brought it to Frankie, and Frankie said, let's record it. But the reason why we changed the name to the Romans is because it was an Italian-American kind of song, and we didn't want it to interfere with the success of the Four Lovers. So we changed the name to the Romans and put the record out. And strangely enough, you could still hear the song today. And that was over, 60 years ago?
Wow. Okay, so I didn't know that either. So then they became the Four Seasons, but you were already gone before they became the Four Seasons. Is that accurate?
Yeah, what happened was when I was 20 years old, Frankie walked into a club off of Bloomfield Avenue, which was called the Venetian.
Okay.
And my band was playing there. We had 5 musicians, and we went to a music and arts high school.
Okay.
So the best musicians from the area went to this school, and after we graduated, we continued to play together and put together a band. And the band was recognized by most of the musicians in New Jersey as the premier musical band.
Okay.
We sang like the Four Freshmen. We did Frank Sinatra music. We were able to imitate records. We had 2 horns, and I played accordion in the band. We had an electric bass and a drum. But all the musicians used to admire our band because of our musicianship. Frankie walked in the club one night and listened to the band and said, "Who wrote the arrangements?" So they pointed to me. And at the age of 20, I met Frankie Valli. And after a few months of palling around with Frankie, his Nicky, Tommy's brother, was the bass player at that time. And he ran into some difficulty and had to leave the state. So they needed a bass player to replace Nicky. So Frankie asked me if I wanted to join the Four Lovers. So I did that. I was with them for about 2 years. And then I went back with my other band because they were going to travel the country. And how I continued with Frankie was during the period I was away, they started to make records with Bob Crew. When they started to need an arranger, Frankie called me and said, "Charlie, would you write arrangements for Bob Crew? It's not going to pay a lot, but it'll be a lot of fun." So it was the 5 of us, was Frankie, Bob, Tommy, Nick Massey, and myself, that started to make the records with Bob Crew. So when the Four Seasons came about, I was the person doing the music, so I became the arranger. Then ultimately, when Nicky left in 1965, I was drafted. I didn't want to become a Four Season, but they drafted me, and I was there for about a year. Then I left. I replaced myself with Joe Long. So that's the whole dog and pony show of how I got to meet Frankie and how I got to be with the Four Seasons.
That is just so cool. I mean, you know what? I didn't know about the Four Lovers. I honestly didn't, and I said I had to hear it from you. Because there's a lot of information out there, and some of it's accurate and some of it isn't, and I just wanted to make sure that I got it from you. You know what I mean? So that's really interesting. Very, very cool.
Well, Frankie had a hit record in 1956 with the Four Lovers called "You're the Apple of My Eye," and the song was written by the same writer wrote the song. I can't remember his name, but he wrote All Shook Up. He wrote The Return to Sender.
Oh, okay.
He wrote a lot of hit records, but he wrote the song that they had to hit with. So Frankie really had his first hit record in 1956.
So I have a question for you, and it's actually from Michael D'Amore, and it's appropriate for what you just said. So Michael D'Amore says hello to you, and he wanted to know, what song did you write or arrange for the Four Seasons that you never thought would be a hit?
Actually, when we made records with the Four Seasons, we pretty much knew what the single was. So there was never a question when we went into the studio that we're not going in with an A song. We would always record an A song. Now, when we would record other songs, but we always knew what the front runner was.
Okay, so fair enough with that. Now, I have a question for you. You know, the Hitman. I have to ask you because I love it. Okay, first of all, I'm Italian, but you know, no, the Hitman. So, who named you that?
Well, I had 100 Billboard chart records.
Yep.
Between country records and pop records, I had a total of about 30. It was around 42 hits that were top 10. So having that many top 10 records and that many different genres of music, and I think only 4 or 5 of them were with the Four Seasons.
So, oh my goodness, that's amazing. Okay, so then, all right, let me ask you this. So, when you left the Four Lovers and all this went on, and then the Four Seasons and everything else, right? You started doing your own thing, and you ended up working with everyone under the sun, right?
Well, when I let me just shut the piano off so it doesn't ring again. When I started to make records, the drummer who played on the Four Seasons records, Buddy Salzman, said to me, he says, Charlie, he said, you know, you're starting to get busy. He said, there are 4 stages in your career. And I said, well, what are they? He says, who's Charlie Calello? We have to get Charlie Calello. What we need is a young Charlie Calello, and then whatever happened to Charlie Calello. So those were the 4 stages. So while it was, we got to get Charlie Calello, I started to get calls from different people who wanted me to make records for them. So the first record I made outside of a Four Seasons record was Shirley Ellis, The Name Game. I produced the record in I think I made the record in 64, it was a hit in 65. And at the same time, I also had the hit record, A Lover's Concerto with the Toys.
Yes.
And around the same period, there were a couple of other chart records, but the other big one was Lightning Strikes with Lou Christie.
Oh, come on.
So with the Four Seasons, Shirley Ellis, the Toys, and Lou Christie having 4 artists that had hits in a period of about 3 years, it sort of got my name around to people started to call me to make records for them.
Because everybody was messaging me, and they're like, ask him, like, what point did he transition from musician to the hitman? So that's why I had to bring that up, okay? They're all going crazy.
Well, once I started to write, which was always a passion of mine. I started writing music when I was about 15 years old, and I studied arranging by listening to records and taking dictation off the records. And by the time I got the opportunity to become an arranger, I really had set my goal on the fact that, boy, I'd really like to do this for a living.
So I'm going to ask you a question that I love asking all my legendary icons, okay? I have to ask this. You've worked with so many people. You've probably worked with more people than any other entertainer that I've interviewed, okay? It's a two-part question. The first one is, and it's gonna be hard to answer, so you don't have to just answer one person. You can say a few people if you want. Who really made an impact on you through the years, and who haven't you met that you always wish you could have met?
Well, the first part of the question is probably a lot easier to answer because the people that I really admired were arrangers and singers. I worked with a lot of great singers. There was really no one that I worked with that I really thought about was like better than somebody else, because when you get to a certain level, all the singers were on the same par. They just did different things. So from the standpoint of which one was the most fun to work with, now that's a different story. Most fun I ever had working with anybody was Al Cooper. We didn't have any hits, but we had a lot of fun. The second part of the question about who I would have liked to have worked with, who I would have liked to have worked with, I never really thought about that as much because I had so much opportunity, recording Frank Sinatra, Barbra Streisand, Bruce Springsteen. These were all people that were at the top of their game. So when it came time to, I recorded pretty much everybody who I could have thought, hey, wouldn't it be nice to record that person? And just before Elvis died, my person who was representing me was talking to RCA about me recording Elvis.
Oh. Elvis, I never got to meet him. I have the ticket to the concert in my Elvis poker room, okay? But I did get to interview his nurse, Marion, and the gentleman, Elvis Aaron Presley Jr., and I was interviewed by George Klein at Graceland. So I got all that a little bit. But yes, Elvis. So tell me a little bit about Frank Sinatra. Because I have a little, I heard, rumor has it that he thinks you're his biggest star.
Well, one of the things that took place, growing up, I listened to Sinatra records as a kid. He was famous in the 40s, and I didn't graduate high school until 1956. So through grammar school and high school, he was already a big star. I got an opportunity to record him when I was 31 years old, 1969. And the reason why I recorded him was because he was, the Four Seasons were opening for Frank Sinatra, and Frankie Valli became friendly with Sinatra. And Bob Gaudio and Jake Holmes wrote a whole album for Sinatra called Watertown. And I got to write 7 of the arrangements on the record. Now, I hadn't met him. I only got the keys through the producers. So when I wrote the arrangements, I never met him, never sat down with him. The night of the session, when we recorded, it was 7 o'clock at Columbia 30th Street. There was a studio on 30th Street and 3rd Avenue. That was a church that Columbia Records owned, and that was the studio where pretty much all of the early records, the Streisand records, the Broadway shows, the Tony Bennett records, all those records were made at that studio. So we went there to record Sinatra. But I never expected him to show up at the session, because back then we would track a lot of the sessions and singers would overdub later on. So 7 o'clock came, I got in front of the orchestra, brought my hands up, started to conduct. And about halfway through the arrangement. The only thing I could explain is that the music went from black and white to color. Something changed in the middle of them playing the music. I didn't know it at the time, but he walked in the back of the studio, and I was conducting, and he walked up to the podium. He tapped me on a leg, and he looked up, and I was on a podium that was maybe about 18 inches off the ground. So he looked up and he said, "You, Calello?" I looked down. I went to say yes or shake his hand. I looked down. There was Frank Sinatra. Nothing came out of my. I was awestruck. It was just one of the most uncomfortable moments of my life. Like first thing that ran through my mind is I know he's going to hate what I wrote, and I know that he's not going to like this. And right after the first arrangement, when I went into the control room, as I walked in, he says, "Nice chart, Charlie."
So, but he loved it.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. Okay, so that's really cool. So any other starstruck moments you've had?
No, it's funny. I was never really a fan of going to see people, so I never saw Frank Sinatra in person. I never took the. No, I got to back up. I did see him from afar about 10 years earlier at the Sands when I was playing there with the other band I was with. I went to see him one night. He was performing with Dean Martin, and I stood in the back of the showroom and I saw the show. And naturally, it was exciting to see them, but I really didn't think about it. But later on, when I recorded Springsteen was not as big as he is right now.
Okay.
And when I recorded with Barbra Streisand, although she was a major star, she was just a delight to be around. She was such a cool lady. And I went to her house and rehearsed her in her living room on a piano. And we made the record together, My Heart Belongs to Me, which was a top 5 record. But working with her, you realize that not only is she talented, but she was really, really such a delightful person. Really, it was like being with somebody I knew like a good friend.
I am so happy to hear you say that, because over the years I've heard different mixed, opinions about Barbara, and I loved her. So I'm really happy that came from you. Thank you for sharing that with me.
I'll tell you my view
Okay.
of the people that spoke negatively about her. Her competence, when you're at that stage where you have that much talent, the bar that you set is so high. When you work with people that don't come up to the bar, it frustrates you. Now, me as an arranger, I was frustrated by some of the musicians that worked for me because they couldn't do what I wanted them to do.
Okay.
So at the end of the session, some of the musicians would say, "I don't want to work for Calello." Yeah, they wouldn't work for me because they knew I wasn't pleased with them. But Barbara most likely went through the same experience. If she worked with people where she didn't get the results that she wanted, and it was not up to her to be able to deliver those results because she hires a person to do that, whether it be a music writer, a songwriter, choreographer, whatever it is. When you work with people that are below the standards that you set, of course you're going to be frustrated. And then some people, they just don't handle that well.
Perfectly said. You just made me look at things a little differently, because you're right. Everything's perspective. Wow, okay. I appreciate that honesty. I have another question for you from someone, okay? So his name is Anthony Calatrella, and he would like me to ask you if you recall when Like a Little Boy in Grown-Up Clothes was first recorded. Was it before or after the seasons that you left?
I don't remember.
Okay, that's okay.
The funny thing about the records, I remember the hits because I heard them on a radio.
Okay.
And when you hear them on a radio over and over and over again, I can remember details about the session. But the ones that were not hits, like if you wanted me to tell you when the song was recorded on what session, I won't remember.
That's okay.
I remember when we did Dawn Go Away on the same record, on the same session, we did Silence is Golden.
Okay.
But I don't remember the other 3 songs that we did.
Okay, fair enough. So I have a silly question for you. Okay, so all the songs that you took part in, whether you sang them, written them, whatever it was, right? Do you have any like favorites, or do you just love them all, or anything in particular you could tell us about a couple?
Well, the funny part about that question is I always like the last thing I wrote.
I love that. Go ahead.
So when I wrote an arrangement, I sort of had a principle that I wasn't going to let it go until I really believed that this is what I really wanted. So when I heard the record back, there were times I wasn't really pleased with it 100%. But the fact is that there was always something on the session that I really, really liked. So going back, when I made the Name Game, I thought that was great. By the time I started to record I thought Lover's Concerto was great. I thought that After the Lovin' was great. I thought My Eyes Adored You was great. I thought the record I made with Streisand was great. Native New Yorker was a gem. As I look at these arrangements, I look at them, they all have things in it that I know I wrote. The one that my client really wasn't pleased with was a song that I wrote 3 notes in that evidently didn't please him, or he didn't get it. I was called to make a record for someone, and after I wrote the arrangement, we went to the studio to record it, and we recorded the track, and I went into the studio to listen back, and I said, "How was that?" And he sat there, no expression, says, "Well, I didn't hear anything wrong with it." So I left the studio. I was really, really concerned that he didn't like what I did. And I was disappointed for many years. Song became a big hit, but it wasn't until the 90s when people started to find the 3 little notes that I wrote and started to sing them on a regular basis, when they would do Sweet Caroline.
Da, da, da.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, God.
So sometimes you write an arrangement, the client's really not pleased with it. They put the record out, but it wasn't like I walked into the studio and he says, "Oh, this is great, perfect, thank you. I'll see you next year." I never worked for Neil again. He never called me back to make another record. That was the only record I ever made for him. And as a result of that, I look back and I say to myself, sometimes the clients are really not happy with what you do, even though you make them hit records.
Dot, dot, dot. Oh my gosh. That's great. So, okay. So I have to give you another shout out because this one's important to me as well. So I have a Long Island City friend that we all grew up together and we reconnected many moons later. He knows a lot of my family members. His name is Dominic Paradise, and he is an up-and-coming, one of the most popular Four Seasons tribute artists. And, like I said, from Long Island City, New York. Well, he freaked out when he saw my ad, because this all just happened this week with you and I. And he was like, "Are you kidding me? How could you not tell me?" I was like, "Dominic, relax. This just happened." I said I was saving it as a surprise. So he wants me to tell you hello, hello, hello. And he's finally coming to New Jersey to do something. And listen, I just had to give him a shout out. So could you do me one favor? Because even Lee Shapiro, we got to give Lee Shapiro a shout out. Love you, Lee. But could you say personally hello to Dominic Paradise for me, please?
Dominic, how come Geri only knows Italians? So far, all the people that she's mentioned on the show so far are all Italians. Are they? Is that the only group of people that listen to her show? Anyway, I'll look forward to meeting you one of these days. And if you're ever in Florida, just ask Geri to give me a holler.
Oh, I love you for that. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. So, Charles, I can answer your question about the Italians. So, only Italians have no boundaries. So, they don't care about sending me 100 texts a day about getting their point across or saying hello to someone. Everyone else is very proper. So, they don't want to bother me. Italians don't care.
The Metagans.
There you go, baby. There you go. So thank you, thank you. He's freaking out right now because he's listening, okay? And I know he's like, he can't breathe right now, so thank you for that. So, all right. So we're going to also talk about your book, okay? But before we do, I want to ask, oh my gosh, he's messaging me, okay? Thank you, thank you. You are too much, so he loves you. He's messaging me. All right. So, I have a question for you because I'm interested in this as well. Again, you wear so many hats, right? You do so much, probably more than most entertainers I've ever interviewed. And you probably can't answer this exactly either, but give me an idea. What part of everything that you do you, I don't even want to say the words like the most because that's not really what I mean, but what do you get more enjoyment out of when you're producing or composing or singing or songwriting? Tell me a little bit.
Well, at this age, it's the check.
All right, and then we'll go backwards prior to the check, but continue.
No, I never went into this because I wanted to make money. Because there were years, there were some rough years along the way when there were no hit records. But the process that I go through when I write arrangements, I love every minute of it. Okay. I could get to my office, sit in front of my score pad, 8 o'clock in the morning, write until 1 in the morning, and do that for weeks at a time. And I think that while I'm doing that, I'm having a great time. Then I go into the recording studio, and then I'm playing my music in front of live musicians that are playing things that I wrote over the past month. And I'm saying, what could be better than this? Then I hear a singer sing it, and I say, oh, wow, listen to that. So when you think about the process, it actually starts where the excitement actually starts with the songs. Because if you have a great song, it sort of, and you have a great singer, sort of makes you want to find that ingredient that's going to make the song live for that artist. Okay. And one of the things that I learned how to do very, very early from Bob Crew was I learned how to make records, not just write arrangements. Oh. So making records was just an overall joy, whether I was writing, producing, mixing the record, working with the singer, listening to the band. It all seems to fall into the same category.
Okay, so now...
one thing I'd like to add is I know you mentioned me as a singer. I did sing on Working My Way Back to You. That was the only hit record that I sang on with the Four Seasons. But I don't regard myself as a singer. Yes. I regard myself as a musician, and I have a pretty good ear, so I could sing in tune. But other than that, I don't really have a great sound. And many times I would make a record, and the artist would ask me to sing the song so that they could learn the song. And I would sing it, and I'd listen back, and I'd say, God, I'm glad I'm not singing on this record.
So that's so cool. So, all right. So now I'm going to ask you something about conducting, okay? And, you know, this is where the silliness in me comes out. Because whenever I watch someone conducting, I kind of giggle. And I'm like, I really don't get what they're doing. Because what I see is just this. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, talk to me a little bit about that. Like, what do the musicians see? How do they know exactly what you're telling them to do? I need to hear that.
There's a cartoon that I have that I could share with you.
Okay.
And it's the musicians talking to the conductor. When the music stops, turn around and bow. One of the things musicians say is, after they count off, don't look at the conductor.
Okay.
Now, the reason for it is most conductors are into the show business aspect. Now, when I conduct for a record, one of the things that would take place in the studio, there's no audience. So my job as a conductor was for them to watch me and watch my enthusiasm in the way that they perform the music. And the more they saw me into it, the more I would get from them. So being a conductor, with all that you could learn in school about how to conduct different time signatures, how to learn different pieces of music, et cetera, what a conductor is a conductor is a motivator. He doesn't play anything. So in order for him to get the music to be what he wants it, he has to interpret the music with his body, with his hands, with his facial expressions. So when musicians would see me in a studio and they'd see that I knew that they nailed it, you could see the whole feeling in the studio change.
So I have to comment. Okay, so I've been dying to ask a real conductor that question because no one else can answer it. You just described it. I'm like in shock right now. So I'm very enthusiastic with a lot of things in my life because that's my personality, right? So what I heard from you was this. So even if you're not telling them to do something, you're letting them know good or bad or indifferent, correct?
Right.
That is cool. I get it now.
Now in 3 weeks, I'll be conducting the Nashville Symphony for Ronnie Millsap.
Okay.
And one of the fun parts about it is I wrote a 9-minute overture that I play with the orchestra. And when you play with an orchestra that plays all the great composers, they play all of these great artistic pieces. When you get in front of an orchestra like that, you're just another face. The only thing that separates you from what reaction you're going to get from the musicians is what's on the paper and the way you get the musicians to deliver the information. So the whole idea with conducting, even when you conduct 80 pieces or 120 pieces, is when you get in front of the orchestra, you have to gain the respect of the people that are going to play your music and not do it egotistically. Because once you show that you think you're somebody who you think you know what you're doing, they will automatically not want to work for you because they would resent it. But if you're talented and if you're the real deal, they recognize it right away. And it's fun to see how these things come together because you don't have many places we go. The orchestras may not be as good. Some of the orchestras are really, really wonderful. So based on your reaction or my reaction to the way that they play will be the way I get results back.
That is so, I'm going to be telling this story, okay? I have to. That is so cool. Thank you for that explanation, okay? Completely amazing to me. I always wondered, what the heck is it about? Thank you. So now let's talk about your book. So Another Season, The Memoirs of Charlie Calello. And you co-wrote this with Tom Austin. He co-wrote it with you. Is that correct? Tell us about that.
Well, after Jersey Boys, I met Tom, and I hadn't seen him in maybe 50 years. When I was with the four lovers,
Yes.
um, we did a hop in Pittsburgh as a promotion for something that we did, and I met Tom back then. And also we met Bob Gaudio back then too,
Okay.
but that's not the way it's phrased. That's not the way it's laid out in Jersey Boys. So,
Okay.
but I hadn't seen him, and I sat behind him at the opening of Jersey Boys. So we exchanged numbers, and I got a call from him several months later. He said that he did a painting of the theater, and he wanted to show it to the Four Seasons. I was making a record with Frankie Valli. This was 2006,
Okay.
and he brought the painting up. And I brought him up to the room that we were rehearsing in, and eventually it became part of the memorabilia that they sold at the show. So we stayed in touch, and I think it was maybe had to be around 2015, 2016. He called me and said he was asked to write a story about the music of the 60s in New York, and would I be interested? Could he interview me so he could write the story? So as we started to talk, he says, "How are you remembering this?" So I said, "Well, I've had three people that have tried to write a book on me, and I've gone over this at different times." I said, "At least for the past 15 years." I said, "But I don't like any of the books that they've put together, because the books were always, Calello's great, he did this, and he did what, and I said to him, I know enough about doing things, especially when it comes time to any kind of music. If you don't endear it to the public, and if you don't connect with the public, no one's really going to want to read any of this stuff. They don't want to hear that I'm so great, I do all these ones. They want to know how things really took place and what you felt like, what it was like to go through the experience." So Tom said, "I'd like to take a shot at it." And we spent about 6 months. Every Friday, we'd spend 2 hours on the phone, and he'd write stuff, and he'd send it to me, and I'd say, "Oh, can't say that. Oh, can't say that. Oh, can't say that." I didn't want any bad words in it. I didn't want to badmouth anybody. I didn't really want to say anything negative about anybody. And we wound up writing a book that was, when I read it, I said, "This is really the story." So then I let it go. But if it wasn't for him, I would not have had the book.
So I love your honesty because, all right, when I read people's books, and even my own, I will never put something in my book that is not true. If I don't want to talk about something, I'll leave it out. I won't rearrange it. I don't appreciate that. So I love your honesty with this because you're right. People want to hear your story, and they also want to hear how great you are because you are. I'm saying that, okay? So, but people want to hear your story. A lot of times when I do certain interviews, a lot of the legendary icons will be like, "Well, they're not interested in that." They're absolutely interested in that. That's what your fans want to hear, and it makes you real to them, you know what I mean? And touchable, and, relatable, and I just love that. So I thank you for your honesty even with that. So I cannot wait to read this book. How can people get the book?
Well, it's on Amazon,
Okay.
or they can actually just go online and just follow the chain. But I know it's on Amazon. I think it's on, I don't know, Tom knows more about it than I do.
That's fine. Yes, everybody. So look, another season, okay? The Memoirs of Charlie Calello by Charlie and Tom Austin. So please, please, please check into this book, okay? Go to Amazon. I'm sure it's there.
Well, one of the things I do know about Amazon is that the last time I looked, there were all 5 stars.
Of
So
course.
all the reviews on it were all 5 stars. Nobody said, I was disappointed I bought the book. And it's funny about feeling. Um, when I made a record, I wanted to make it feel like I wanted it to feel, and I wanted singers to sing it so that they were pouring their feelings into the music. And one of the things I learned about doing anything is if you don't have your heart in it, it's just not something that is going to appeal to anybody, because you have feelings, I have feelings. We all feel hurt, we all feel pain, we all feel love, we all feel pressure. So if you don't get it, this person will get it. This person will get it. That person may not get it, because all you need to do is get people on the same feeling level, and they will relate to it. So you're not going to appeal to everybody, but you will appeal to a bunch of people that have that certain sensitivity. It's the same thing with the music. People that bought the music along the years, there was something in it that they found was of value to them, that reached their soul.
Now I know why you are the hit man, and now I know why you wear so many hats, and I'm going to share something with you. So I'm an artist, and I went to art school. I mean, a real artist, right? I'm an artist, I'm a poet, I'm a writer, I speak a lot. I can't stay in one spot, and I see that that's you as well. And when you truly go out of the boxes that we were maybe put into growing up or told, that's when you redefine yourself. And the way you just even explained that is beautiful to me, because you're right. You know, not everyone is going to look at something the same way or appreciate something the same way, but you're going to get the people that are on the same page who needed to hear that, who needed to feel that. So thank you for that and your honesty. And again, your honesty to me, it's off the wall, because I don't really get that from a lot of my entertainer interviews. You know, so you're being very transparent, and thank you. I really, truly, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate that. We want to hear that. We want to know that you're vulnerable. We want to know what makes you tick, right? And so you just explained that beautifully to me. Thank you.
One of the things that I learned along the way is every artist that puts something out on a piece of paper and has to show it to somebody, there's always that apprehension. You don't know what the reaction is going to be. And Thoreau explained it very, very nicely when he said, we all live our lives in quiet desperation. We know the level of our own incompetence. And we are also in every meeting in our mind and think that everybody else is in that meeting. So what really takes place is, with us as individuals, especially in my career, I went along never thinking I was talented, because I never thought that I was as good as somebody else, never realizing that my level of acceptance was, I was always trying to reach the bar and never able to reach it, and thought that everybody else knew that I was incompetent because I couldn't reach this bar. And it took me probably, I would say, 40 years of my life before I was able to actually understand that that really wasn't the case, that everybody goes through the same thing. Not everybody is so perfectly assured of everything they do.
Well, I'm here to tell you, listen, and I am not just saying this. I don't just say things to say things, okay? I have interviewed a lot of legends, Larry Chance, Mel Carter, right? I mean, a lot of them. And they're incredible, and people sent me messages, but no one has, I have not received the amount of messages after I put the ad out about interviewing you. Everyone is going crazy, okay? Michael D'Amore, the new lead singer of the Capris, right? He said you had called him years ago. You guys talked about him possibly doing something, and he said, listen, I better not touch that. And to me, he's one of the greatest singers in the world. And even he called me today How'd you get Charlie? Okay, so everybody. So you are not only up here, okay, your bar is raised incredibly high. So for you to say that, it's so funny to me because I look at your career and I think, how could you even think that? You know, but I get it. Listen, you are very humble and I appreciate that. But there's not anyone out there, not in the entertainment business, not fans, that doesn't think your bar is super high, and a lot of them feel they can't meet it. And that is the truth, Charlie, and that is the truth. That's how we feel.
But I understand that today, and the joy of finally getting out of that box has made it possible, to really enjoy doing what I do a lot better. But in actuality, well, everybody's born with a gift. Some people just never get the opportunity to work with their gift. And the fact was, what I have is not something that I developed. It was something that was given to me, and I was given opportunity. And all I did was I prepared myself. And when opportunity came my way, I was prepared. But the fact is that in reality, there are a lot of people that do what I do, but I realize one thing is that no one can do what I do because I'm me, and nobody has my heart. So as long as you work from your heart, then you will always be original.
Charlie, I wasn't going to read a poem. I have to read it. I have to read it. What you just said. My poem that I want to read is called Utilizing Gifts and Talents. Okay? And you just basically, in a nutshell, said what my poem's about. So here it is. I hope you enjoy this. We are born with talents. We are born with drive, with different gifts to help us thrive. I knew early on I was born to draw and paint, to also write poetry, and to talk without restraint. Our gifts and talents should all be used. God's gift to us, not be abused. We can go far in life for sure, using our gifts to go on tour. All our talents should be used to create ourselves and more, but then our job's to share them, to even up the score. You see, in life, what's needed is not just for ourselves. Once our gifts are mastered, take them off the shelves. A living you can make by spreading them around, but not just for the money, to spread a peaceful sound. Don't take for granted the gifts you're given. Go out and spread the joy. Our gifts are not to be held back for us to self-destroy. Put your efforts forth, do not hesitate. All your talents, my friend, are never second rate. Never hold them back or you will surely die. Maybe not in body, but your soul will cry. Be proud of who you are. Be happy you're alive. Once again, my friend, your gifts will help you thrive. By putting efforts forth, not keeping them at bay, your name will live forever, Charlie, forever and a day. Go through life excited for what you sure can give. To yourself and others is our reason to live. Our grave will be quite lonely, but your legacy lives on. Make sure people smile with the breaking dawn. That's for you today, because I cannot believe what you said. Thank you.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. Wow, you're amazing. We still have a little bit of time. Is there anything you may have forgotten to talk about that you'd like to share?
Well, I have a show that I do.
Yep.
And a friend of mine actually talked me into doing it. About 20 years ago, he said, would you do a show for me? And I said, what would I do? He says, do your hit records. So I said, really? He said, yeah, play your hit records. So eventually, after doing it, quite a few times, I eventually got it to where I really enjoyed doing it, because not only do I play the records, and I have really great singers that do it, but the fact that I explain where the songs came from, who liked the song, who didn't like the song, how we made the records, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the cool parts about it is that I was asked in one of the interviews, what do you think about when you're doing the show? So I had to think about that for a minute. And I said, it's like living the best part of my career without the drama. And without without the record company hating some of the music, like the frustration of making a record like After the Lovin' with Humperdinck, and a record company saying we don't want the record, we don't want to put it out. So we bought the record and sold it to another record company. Or when I made Lightning Strikes, and the president of the record company threw it in the garbage in front of me. You know, and after recording Laura Nero's Eli album, getting fired from Columbia Records, making the record of my life. And when you go through the business and you see the amount of frustration that was there, along with the creative side, those of us that survived it received a lot of blessings because we were able to live our lives and fulfill our life's dream. But to do the show and not be reminded of the negativity was really great. And then plus the fact that I know I make the records sound exactly the way I recorded them. And when I do them, it's always fun to hear the arrangements. To stand in front of the band and have them play it, it's always a thrill. And I don't know how many people that listen to you that live here in Florida or
lots of people. K&D Unique Entertainment, they're listening as well. Oh, yes.
January 15th, I play a little club here. It's a small club, and it's not even something I would do. We don't do it for the money because it only seats 300 people. But I like to play it because the sound of the band in there is so great. It's like working Birdland, you know, but not this Birdland that's there. It's like working a club like that where you're right with the audience. I'm playing a place here on Glades Road called the Black Box.
Okay.
It's an old comedy club, and I love playing it. But we're doing it January 15th. It's a Sunday night, and I actually needed a rehearsal because I had another concert that we were doing at a private club on the Wednesday, so I needed a rehearsal. So I booked the Black Box, but the band smokes, and anybody who comes to the show will really love it.
Amazing. Anything else?
Not really.
Okay.
I just recorded a kid, Chris Ruggiero.
Oh, Chris Ruggiero, we love him. I would love an interview with you, Chris. I reached out to him a while ago. Yes, Chris is awesome. Go ahead.
I just made a record with him, and that was a lot of fun because we did 60s songs, but we modernized the record so the records really sounded. He sounds great.
Oh, okay.
He really, really sounds great. We took 60 songs and took like the best of the period and early 70s songs. And it's as far as but they're all done in a way that are unique, not copying the records, but it was fun to make that record. And there's still people that are out there, you know, trying to keep that music alive.
Yes. So you did all the arranging on it with him, obviously.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and if you get a chance to listen to any of the cuts,
Okay.
my favorite, well, I got about 3 or 4 favorites. Then I just recorded a girl, and we're doing swing versions of 60s and 70s songs.
So cool.
We're taking the songs, and instead of playing them like the original records, taking them and doing them with a big band, and we're doing them so that the songs become part of the period. It's not like we're forcing the song into the period. We're making the songs, we're recording the songs the way they would have been meant, way they were meant to be recorded if they were written in that period.
That is so cool.
So it's really a lot of fun.
Okay.
So, you know, those are the things that I'm doing right now. Still working. And I'll probably be on my deathbed saying, oh, I should have changed the harmonies in the chorus.
Listen, okay, I don't even want to touch that, okay? But one last question, because I won't keep you. One last question. So again, you do so much, right? So how did you, learn how to do everything that you do just from trial and error?
Um, how did I learn this?
It
Well,
fascinates me.
take into consideration the fact that um, if you really want to become proficient in anything,
Okay.
you have to stay with it,
Okay.
and you have to grow with it. You have to study it, and you have to learn from things that take place. And over the years, going through the experiences of what made a hit record, what was the difference between just writing an arrangement or writing a record, or how a singer was supposed to sing to get a certain feeling out, and uh, just learning these things and being able to then verbalize them to other people and get people that you work with to also get on the same page. It's sort of like one thing led to another, and you sort of learn it and just go with your gut.
Amazing. Well, Charlie, I want to thank you because this was awesome. And for me especially, and the way you describe silly things for me that I asked you to describe. I mean, I'm going to be talking about this interview for a long time. And my phone still, I cannot tell you how many more texts I see on my thing that I'm not even looking at yet, okay? People are going crazy today with this interview. And I want to thank you for agreeing to have, you honored me, I can't even tell you. So thank you so much. And again, Tom, thank you for making this happen, okay? Connecting us.
Well, if you get to the point where you take a look at the text messages and you see a lot of questions that they wanted to ask, just give me a holler, and
Okay, I will.
if I have the time, I'll just, go through the questions, answer them one at a time.
Absolutely. And, again, Michael Diamore says hello. Dominic Paradise, forget it, okay? He's on cloud 9 right now, okay? Yes, I told him he owes me $1. He owes me $1 for this now. I want to thank you again, honestly, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for this honor right here on the Geri Petito Show, everybody. Hamilton Radio, the one and only Charlie Calello. Thank you, thank you. You're a star.
Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, Geri Petito.
I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
When you don't know just what to do.
Just what to do, just what to do.
If what you're feeling is really true.
It's really true, is it really true?
Just keep your ideas safe and sound.
Safe and sound, safe and sound.
That's exactly how change is found.
Change is found, change is found. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.